You're welcome to the Messiah channel. We are an end time channel. We focus mostly on the end time events. And in this video, we're talking about the recent meeting between President Biden of the United States and nations, African leaders. They met in the United States. And President Biden pledged $55 billion to African nations. Biden is pledging an amount of $54 billion to African nations. It means that U.S. has realized that America cannot ignore Africa because major world powers, Russia and China, they are engaging the African continent, and China considered Africa as the second continent. And the U.S. has realized that the United States is also experiencing a very difficult time as the U.S. now is engaged in a proxy war with both China and Russia, and potentially U.S. hegemony will be dismantled. Physically, we're talking about a fact. Nations rise and they fall. Babylonian power fell. Assyrian power fell. The Roman Empire fell. And American power will also fall. The British Empire fell. We're also talking spiritually because I believe the U.S. is the Babylon spoken of in the book of Revelation. And so the U.S. will also fall. Is there anything wrong when the U.S. pledges $55 billion to African nations? If you know about the politics of aid, remember that the money that is pledged to a foreign country is not everything that goes to the foreign country. Much of the money stays in Washington. And so when the U.S. pledges $55 billion to Africa, it doesn't mean that all of the $55 billion is going to Africa. It's very hypocritical that the U.S. is spending a lot of money to one nation, Ukraine, billions, and giving $55 billion to 15 nation continent. I do not support foreign aid because foreign aid allows powers, imperialist powers, to control nations and force the recipient nations to accept the policies of the given nations. And these types of aid allows the U.S. and China and Russia to control events in Africa and other parts of the world. And the U.S. is now trying to impose her culture on the African continent regarding gender issues, regarding same-sex marriages, and regarding things that are abomination. But I'm saying this, that the United States is pledging $55 billion to Africa. We are saying that the tables will change. The reason why I'm saying the tables will change is that we are in the end times, and God changes leaders. We have a God who changes seasons, and the seasons are changing, and there is a shift, and there's going to be a shift. I believe the Americans' hegemony is on the decline, and you can see what is happening inside the United States in terms of economic power, in terms of military power. And you can see that America is matched boot to boot by China and also by Russia. And you can also say that even America is matched boot to boot by Iran. You saw Iranian drones and how they perform in Ukraine in comparison to American weapons, including Hamas. And so things are changing, the tables are changing. Big powers will lose and they will be dethroned because nations will be changed, powers will be changed, and the tables will turn. The first will be last, and the last will be first. And so when United States President Biden meets African leaders and pledges $55 billion to them, the symbolism is a rich nation giving money to poor countries, poor African countries. But the prophecies of God's chosen people, prophecy about God's chosen people will be fulfilled. And that fulfillment is coming very soon. The tables will be turned. And based upon a vision that I had, the richest nation in the world in the end times will be an African nation located in West Africa. The IMF is not talking about it. The World Bank is not talking about it. The economists are not talking about it. This is a vision, this is a prophecy. I've repeated it so many times. And so now America is giving $55 billion to Africa. But a time is coming, and it wouldn't be too long. The tables will turn. The richest nation in the world will be an African nation located in West Africa. And if you read the book of Deuteronomy, and the Lord promised his people that they will lend to nations, they will be rich and they will lend to nations. So the nations that are poor now, that are under oppression, the nations who people were taken as slaves and were taken captives and scattered over the world, the tables will turn. The slaves and the Negroes will be regarded, and the places from where they were scattered, I'm talking about Africa, tables will turn. And so in the end times, the richest nation in the world will be a nation located in West Africa. I know the name of the nation, but I'm not mentioning the name of the nation. I'm not mentioning the name of that country. It will be the richest country in the world. It wouldn't be China. It wouldn't be Russia. Both China and Russia, they would like to exploit the resources of other nations in the same way that the Western powers, particularly the United States, have exploited the resources of nations, including killing Gaddafi and taking advantage of the situation, including instigating civil wars and destabilizing the African continent so that their resources can be plundered, the tables will turn. And I believe that when the richest nation emerges, the richest nation in the world, we are not saying the richest nation in Africa, we are saying the richest nation in the world, it will be an African nation located in West Africa. And I hope that the US will give $55 billion to Africa, and the US will also give reparations to people who deserve reparations as a result of the injustice that were done to them for the ages. I believe that the people of God, the chosen children of Judah, they went into captivity, and the Lord is going to judge the nations that took them into captivity. And the $55 billion given by President Biden, or pledged by President Biden, is not going to stop the judgment, as the Lord said in Genesis chapter 15 verses 13 to 14. And ironically, the tables are going to turn very soon, and the richest nation in the world is going to emerge from West Africa, so that everybody will know that Yahweh has not forgotten his people, and Yahweh will bless them, and the first will be last, and the last will be first. Thank you for listening to this message.